we totally get it. We publish a ton of content on this podcast, and it can be a lot to keep up with. That's why we've started the B2B Growth Big Three, a no-fluff email that boils down our 3 biggest takeaways from an entire week of episodes. Sign up today at sweetfishmedia.com/big3. That's sweetfishmedia.com/big3.
You're listening to B2B Growth, a daily podcast for B2B leaders. We've interviewed names you've probably heard before, like Gary Vaynerchuk and Simon Sinek, but you've probably never heard from the majority of our guests. That's because the bulk of our interviews aren't with professional speakers and authors. Most of our guests are in the trenches leading sales and marketing teams. They're implementing strategy. They're experimenting with tactics. They're building the fastest growing B2B companies in the world. My name is James Carberry. I'm the founder of Sweetfish Media, a podcast agency for B2B brands, and I'm also one of the co-hosts of this show. When we're not interviewing sales and marketing leaders, you'll hear stories from behind the scenes of our own business. We'll share the ups and downs of our journey as we attempt to take over the world. Just kidding. Well, maybe. Let's get into the show.
Welcome back to the B2B Growth Show. I'm your host for today's episode, Sean Blackburn with Sweetfish Media. I'm joined today by Scott. He's the CEO and host of Technori. Scott, how you doing today?
Pretty good. Yourself?
Doing awesome. It's great to have you on the show. Before we begin here, maybe if you could just tell our listeners a little bit about who you are, your background, and what it is that you guys do over at Technori.
Yep. So I'm a Chicago-based entrepreneur. I've been doing this for I think a decade now. I can't even remember. So I'm obviously an entrepreneur, investor in startup companies. I host a live radio show on WGN Radio here in Chicago from 1 to 2 on Saturdays. We've got a Technori podcast. Technori as a whole has been around since 2010. Had about 500 startups featured. They've raised a little over $1 billion with a B, $1 billion in capital. Technori is, I guess the best way to put it, it's at this point, it's the largest startup platform in Chicago. But I try not to focus on like what it is because there's so many things. I focus more on like what we do. And what we do is disrupt how startups are launched and funded. We combine the power of equity crowdfunding with the support of a traditional fund, providing early stage companies with access to capital, strategic advisory, tech support. And the hook for us that I think is unique is that we enable the entire community of listeners and audience members and fans to invest in all the companies that we feature directly on the platform via our Reg CF partner, Republic, which is a Title III equity crowdfunding company based in New York. They're a spinoff of AngelList and have had a pretty successful run. So we're the first ever company to feature startups pitching on stage or anywhere for that matter that the regular audience can simply invest their money by hooking up their credit card and throwing $10 or $100 or whatever it is. It's a pretty unique system actually. So very exciting stuff. And obviously we're very proud of a lot of the startups that have been featured. And that includes, Grubhub and Spot Hero and lots of other companies that you probably have heard of.
Very cool. Yep. Used Grubhub last week. So
Nice.
I didn't know that they came through you guys. So that's awesome. Yeah. So man, what a unique concept. And that would be something that you definitely have to be careful with when you're going to an event like that, sitting out in the crowd, not getting too excited, I would imagine.
Well, see, that's the thing. I mean, what makes this so unique is there's accredited investors who are obviously wealthy individuals, net worth over $1 million.
Sure.
And then there's non-accredited. And they have limits to how much a non-accredited person can spend. It's, it's based on your income. Obviously, I would tell anyone whether you're investing in this or on your Robinhood app, don't spend what you can't afford to lose. So, I mean, that's,
right.
Kind of just smart advice. But what's cool about it is if you're a founder like I am and you didn't have money, you still want to invest either to support your friends, support fellow founders, or you just want to sprinkle a few $1,000 into some companies that are very early stage that you think could be a big hit. And I always use the example of Oculus. Oculus did a Kickstarter campaign. They raised, a bunch of money. The average person put in $500 and they got a headset, and that's great. But when Oculus exited to Facebook or was acquired by Facebook, if you had put $500 in, you would have gotten a $30,000 check.
Wow.
And that is crazy. And that's not going to happen for everybody. Obviously, it's not going to happen for most people, but it's only been the richest 3% of the world that's ever been able to invest in private companies. And equity crowdfunding, obviously, I think democratizes investing for everybody. But I think the bigger story around it, why I really like it, and why, I mean, quite honestly, it pairs with our mission of building a very inclusive tech community. And that is that first-time founders, minority founders, female founders are notoriously underserved by traditional institutional investors. So if you come up in an area of town that doesn't have access to wealth, you don't have a rich uncle, family doesn't have money, your friends don't have money, no one's going to cut you a $10,000 or $50,000 or $100,000 check to start this crazy dream. And equity crowdfunding enables you to go to those same people and say, listen, I can't, I know you can't give me 10,000, but can you give me 100 or 1,000 or $500 or $50? And ultimately, those people can go and run a campaign online and through their friends and raise $140,000, $300,000, $500,000 and build their MVP and get started. And the terms are incredibly generous to the founder. They're very simple. It's a convertible note. It doesn't really have any implications on the company that a normal, angel would have, because you're a first-time founder. Angels are not going to give you $200,000 and be like, yeah, do whatever you want. They're going to make sure that they have tons of negative covenants. And so, I think that the biggest killer of ideas is the lack of the opportunity to even pursue it. And so from that aspect, we have really been focused on allowing companies to use our audience from the show and so forth to be able to raise those startup funds. And then we personally get involved a little bit further down the road when they need to, say, raise $1 million, or they want to build technology, or whatever the case may be. That's sort of where we get involved. But I think it's really cool that companies and founders can use this platform, Republic or even MicroVentures, there's other ones, but they can use these platforms to not only raise the startup money, but they can use the platform to tell the world that they even exist. And that, to me, is where the real power is. The money is key, but the influence and the marketability is, to me, is way more valuable than the dollars.
I love that. Yeah, it's a true meritocracy. The best idea wins and is given the platform to do so.
And talk about customer feedback. I mean, right? Let's think about customer feedback. When you talk to anyone who runs a business, anyone who's been on your show, and they talk about all of the different companies and products and things they've sold, they always go back to customer experience, customer feedback, making sure that you're, building something people want, value proposition. The same thing goes for investors. Investors don't have, they don't know everything. They don't know your business. You're coming up with something new. They don't know anything. They act like they do, but they don't know anything. So if you can go to them and say, I ran a campaign for 60 days and 1,000 people invested X dollars and they all gave you this feedback. They all bought the product. That's real valuable feedback, to say nothing of the fact that you've got a lot of marketing, digital information data that you just got. You ran a campaign on social for your equity crowdfunding, right? But you also know the audiences that you ran ads for. So now if you were successful in that campaign, once you go live with your product, you have essentially the audience profile that you need to run your digital marketing through. So, it's just so powerful. And I just don't think people realize how powerful a tool it can be.
So to transition a little bit into how B2B marketers and salespeople can use equity crowdfunding, what are some of the ways that you think that they can do that? I
think there's a lot of ways. So I'll walk you through a real short version of a conversation I have with almost every founder that comes through. And it's sort of this three prong of questions. The first question that you got to ask yourself is why are you trying to raise money or raise awareness? Doesn't matter which it is.
Right.
If the answer is $250,000 to build an MVP, or to quit my job so I can focus on this, or to get out in front of, the people that are in my network and let them know what I'm doing, then equity crowdfunding is a no-brainer, because it's going to cost you a few $1,000s to do. Let's say you want to raise, $100,000 to $300,000. You have to get what they call a accounting review. Paperwork in the review might cost you somewhere between $1,000 and $3,000. If you want to raise up to $1 million, you need an accounting audit. Might cost you a total of $5,000. Then you start running digital marketing campaign around your campaign, and maybe you spend $10,000 on the marketing, maybe you spend more. Just depends on sort of what your bankroll is. The ability for you to use that, let's call it a $25,000 investment, and raise $250,000 and sign up the equivalent of hundreds, if not 1,000, new customers on your platform
Right.
in 60 days and have all their information and essentially reimburse yourself for the $25,000 investment you made, and then still keep probably close to 200 grand to reinvest in whatever the purpose was or the marketing or whatever it is. Like, you find me an agency that can offer you that.
Right.
I've never found anyone who will literally pay me to market my own company.
It's a completely different model. You're right.
Totally different model. And I don't think anyone knows that. I think they look at it like, and rightfully so, but like when equity crowdfunding took off, and it's been like 2016 is when it really hit the startup scene. Before that, Title III of the Jobs Act was focused on real estate. When it came out, they were trying really hard, and we've been partnered with Republic since literally the day before they launched. They came out hard saying it's Kickstarter, but instead of getting perks and a t-shirt, you get equity. And that was the biggest disservice that you could have for this platform, because it made people frame their mind in that I'm only investing for equity. And like you take a very cynical look at it, or I don't say cynical, a very singular look at it. And had you looked at it and just said, no, this is a great tool for you to use mass audiences of people like you do for GoFundMe or Kickstarter to get customer feedback, to get approval, to get buy-in, to get customers themselves, to raise capital, to market your business, to market awareness. Like, if you had framed it that way, and this is a tool you can use for a litany of ways, I think we would have had faster and better adoption. But that's not how they pitched it. And so now, I just don't think founders in particular, but people in general, I don't think they realize that equity crowdfunding is like Product Hunt, except instead of just buying an unproven product, I can actually like buy and invest in it, which, I think that being able to be a participant in the upside of anything is an extremely high value.
That's great. So let's talk about how to spot a bad deal, Scott. What's your tips on that?
Might be the most important thing that any business operator, owner, salesperson, the most important tactic that they have or possess skill, because people love to waste your time. Like, right. I think I hate to quote Jordan Belfort from Wolf of Wall Street, but he mastered the art. He calls them lookie-loos. People who love to want to be seen as a buyer, but they're never a buyer. And those people can just waste every moment of your instance to try to get there. And it's a waste of time. So, which ultimately is a waste of money. And I look at it and I just think you've got to figure out what value you have and what they have that you want. It might be money, it might be a trade, it might be any number of things. But do you have something that is valuable enough that you can extract from them whatever it is you want, money or otherwise? And if you don't waste your time. Don't try to sell somebody garbage. Go back and build up whatever it is, or go get more value and then shop again. And I think that one of the best tricks or tips that I ever heard, and this is going to sound totally random, but follow me here. Magic Johnson, the obviously Lakers Hall of Famer and incredible businessman, he had just finished up with basketball and he was making his first deal. And he said this guy was messing with him. He got so pissed that he wanted to punch him. He wanted to hit him. And he was like, oh my God, I can't do that. I'm Magic Johnson. Like, I'm a businessman now that I'm not on the court. I can't, act this way. And he was like, why am I getting so frustrated? And he realized that he had leveled up. He calls it leveling up. He had gone, he's higher on the totem pole, if you will, than the people than he was before. And he spent all this time with people who were not leveled up with him. And so what he was getting at, ultimately, I'll fast forward here, but what he was getting at was he spends the same amount of time on $1 million deal as he spent on a $5,000 deal.
Right.
Why would you spend time on a $5,000 deal if you could spend the same amount of time and make $1 million? So that means that you got to look around and look at what you've got and be honest with yourself and say, do I have $1 million product, a $10 product? What do I got? And look at the other person and assess whether or not they are $1 million buyer or a $10 buyer. And we've all been there as founders starting up companies or whatever your position or title. We've all been there. But it's a lot of fun to sell something and think I'm going to make $1 million. Like the feeling of about to make $1 million is the coolest thing in the world. The problem is if it's fool's gold, then it's a waste of time and somebody else is going to make your $1 million somewhere else. So you've got to be really, really intuitive and pay attention to the people around you and make sure that they actually possess the resources to provide you with what you're looking for. And if you think you're going to get that, you better know that what you have to give them in exchange is worth as much as they're going to give you. Because if not, you might get the deal once, but you'll never get it again. And if you are really, really wrong and you don't have anything like that, you're going to get all the way to the close. They're going to go, wait a minute, this is shit. I'm out. And then then you start to build a bad reputation, and it all goes downhill from there. And one of the other talking points that I have on this really is about knowing your audience. And we talk about with equity crowdfunding about how valuable it is to build an audience. It goes even further. Like I'm not one of those people that gets like super irritated, with other people like in front of me that often, but I do get irritated when I sit down in a meeting or whatever it is, and that person isn't prepared. They don't know who I am. They don't know what they're there for. They don't know anything. I never go into meetings like that. I never come into something that's of like super importance, especially if it's a business deal, and have not. I mean, I'm creepy. I go on to Facebook. I go onto LinkedIn. I want to know where you went to school. I click on the school and see if you're friends with people I know. I collect as much intel as I can, because you don't want to be in a situation where you say something that turns them off, or rather, even worse, they leave, I don't want to say mess up, but like they leave a gaping hole for you, and you don't take advantage of it because you weren't prepared, and so like that all is kind of like 1 and 2, right? I mean, it's a little bit about spotting a bad deal, but it's also about like finding the right people to work with.
Knowing who you're in front of in the first place. Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely. On enterprise sales, you mentioned follow the money trail. What do you mean by that?
Oh man, this is one of my favorite lessons in life. Everything, whether you're a salesperson or you're a newbie coming onto a company or you're whatever, get as close to the money as you possibly can. Wherever the highest point that you can get to that is the closest source to the money, that's where you want to be. And it's not about greed. It's not about like more money is going to stuff your pocket.
Right.
It's that where the money is located is where the power is centralized. It's where the decisions take place. It's where the learning curve is at its highest. I always say follow the money because, one, as an individual, when I want to be on a business with a team or I want to be a part of something, I want to be as close to the top because I know that that's where I can have the biggest impact and obviously the biggest reward if successful. Of course, that comes with a lot of risk. If you're not prepared or you're not ready for that spotlight, then, that goes very poorly.
Right. That
is kind of philosophical, like where I'm at. But when I look at the actual sales, you've got to look at, and this goes for any business, does not matter whether you're in media selling stuff or you're whatever. The money trail leads to where profitability exists. If I'm working on a company and we've got a show, we've got sponsors and partners, and I say to my partners and sponsors, and some of them, we do business with, some of them it's like investing together, it's building technology for them, which are multiple $1 million sales. Some of it's just branding. Some of it's channel partnerships and their sponsors and all kinds of stuff. When I look at where the money's coming from, let's say I've got a deal with one of my partners and it's going to be $500,000, okay? And $250,000 of it's going to go towards technology built. And $50,000 is going to go towards branding, and $200,000 of it's going to go to different sponsorship lines, whether it's me setting them up with meetings and events and channel partnership stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Which one of those lines do you think is going to get cut first? It's going to be the branding.
Right.
Yeah. It doesn't have an immediate impact. There's no ROI that is provable. The channel partnership, they can go, listen, Scott introduced me to 15 people and I did a bunch of business out of it. And so I know I made more than $200,000 in returned business.
Right.
On the technology, I spent $250. I got an asset. I saved, 30% on what I was paying internally for costs of building. That's an immediate return. The one that's the weak link is the one that is a luxury. It doesn't make money. And that's my example. But if you use you or anybody else, look at your partnerships, look at where your partners, your customers make their money. And don't waste your time selling them on stuff that is not making them money.
Right.
If it's a great, a booming economy and they got tons of cash to burn at the end of the year and they got to burn through their marketing budget, yeah, take that money. But that is the first money that's going to get shut off. And that's why I say to people, when you set up your strategic sort of sales funnel and who your buyers are, circle where they make their money And don't ever take your eye off of it, because that is the one place that you control. I can help you make money. I'm always safe. If I can't help you make money, I'm not safe.
Hey guys, chances are you're running SEO, PPC, social, email, and other digital channels. So why aren't we spending the same time and attention on our highest converting channel, referrals? We all say we value word of mouth because we know it brings our best leads that end up being our best customers. But most of us aren't using referrals as an active marketing channel. Enter the definitive guide to referral marketing from our friends over at Ambassador. To get your free copy, head over to getambassador.com/growth. You'll learn best practices, tips, and strategies to generate positive and organic word of mouth by building your own scalable referral program. Learn from the world's leading referral company, Ambassador, trusted by leading marketers at HubSpot, Zillow, and Gong.io to build and scale their word of mouth programs. Again, go get your free copy of the definitive guide to referral marketing at getambassador.com/growth. And if you want to talk to their experts there, just drop them a note. All right, let's get back into the show.
So you mentioned even kind of a booming economy, but you also in our original correspondence talked about how equity crowdfunding was going to really take off if a down economy hits, and but when a down economy hits. Why is that, you think?
Yeah, I mean, that's actually pretty logical. I mean, you look at it this way: rich people have less. It's honestly, it's the same exact thing as enterprise sales follow the money, right? Because if rich investors are losing money, they're not going to put their money in stuff that is like 10 years out, maybe high risk. They're going to put their money in the safest recession-proof stuff they can. Mm-hmm. They're going to buy depressed properties. They want liquidity. When things get crazy, people who have money want the most liquidity they possibly can, because they can make decisions on a micro level rather than a macro level, because they got to control things.
Right.
And when you look at the VC space, why? I mean, do you think that if all the investors who are these same high net worth individuals we're talking about, the likelihood of them continuing to sprinkle money in by the million, the hundreds of millions in this case, into early stage companies that are also going to be impacted by a down economy, that's a bad investment. So a lot of those investments are going to dry up, and they're going to put their money towards reinvesting in the ones that are doing well, and so, or that need the support. Mm-hmm. And those that have never taken an investment or new to the market or whatever, they're not going to have access to that capital anymore because it's been realigned or it's disappeared. So when you see that dry up, what's going to happen? Those guys still need money. The guys and girls starting companies still need access to capital. Well, then the best way to do it is non-traditionally, and they're going to go to equity crowdfunding. You could argue that other people won't invest either, but if you think, won't invest by equity crowdfunding. But if you think about it, they're not investing solely or even maybe majoritarily because they're trying to get a big return. They're investing because it's a friend and they're trying to help them out. You ask me for $500, I can help you there. You ask me for 10 grand, I can't. So I think you're going to see equity crowdfunding in the case of a recession actually become a very, very good opportunity for those that normally don't have that access to now even have less access to at least get some startup funds going. And then, then if they get their business off the ground, they can start getting capital in the form of revenue, and then they can have those conversations with investors. But there's going to be a drying up of capital, and I think that's the only real logical place to go to get it, other than credit cards, which I can speak from personal experience. Do not do that.
Right. One of your final points was focusing on their need, not the sale.
Never sell anything to somebody. It's one of the biggest sort of misunderstandings about sales to me. Is it's always about value. I talked about it before. Like, if you've got to have something valuable for somebody, you want to focus on trying to find out what their needs are and how you can help them fulfill it. I don't ever want to say to somebody, hey, I want to sell you this, or like I try to convince them that they need this, or I try to convince them that they should buy this, and I start using scarcity and urgency and all these stupid tricks to get these guys in. Right. I want to come from a position of power. I want to be a guy who can help you solve a problem. So when I'm in a conversation with somebody, I'm not sitting there going, let me tell you about this thing I built. It's so cool. You need it. I literally just go, tell me about your business. What are your success stories? What are some of the things that are pain points? How do you amplify the success? How do you minimize the pain? Now they tell me everything you need to know. Then I think about it and I look at what I've got. If I think I'm in alignment or I can help them with something, I focus on telling them not about myself, but how I would solve the problem they have or how I would amplify the success that they're achieving. And then I start circling back with, okay, now that I know that I have something that could solve it, you agree that I have something that might solve it, not my product, but just the idea.
Sure.
Let me tell you a little bit about what we're doing here. And maybe this is something that could be helpful to you, or maybe this is something that could support your growth. And then they go, oh, okay, fine. I'll hear it out, whatever. It's not a sales call anymore. Now it's like, hey, this might actually help me. And then they start to investigate on their own. Now they're coming to me, not me jamming it down their throat. And I think one of the mistakes that happens is, and there's a long list of reasons why, but young people have not grown up communicating individually. They're all in apps.
Right.
They don't even get dates, in person anymore. It's all on an app. So they can't even sell themselves. How the hell are you going to sell a product? So they just think that they have to go out and just like jam the product down your throat and call everybody and ping the hell out of them until they say yes. When in reality, you could just ask 3 questions and calm down and let them come to you. And if they come to you, the probability of sale and the time spent closing is going to be unbelievably easier.
Absolutely.
Versus me having to call the hell out of you until you say yes. It's just focusing on what they need and not on what I have is going to go a lot further.
I love that. The flipping the scenario, basically. And you're absolutely right about the spot of power is being where someone's coming to you. That completely changes the relationship. And one of your final points, I think it's my favorite of them, the don't do business with assholes.
Yes, it is the most important. It is rule. I'm not kidding. It's written on my wall at work. It's the number one rule. Don't do business with assholes. No, seriously, it's so important. And it comes off of, really, it's a great segue off of the focus on need, right? Because what ends up happening here is you get a really crappy relationship once you've sold somebody something, because the expectations are out of proportion. And that's a way to turn someone into an asshole. They may not have been one. Now they are one because you pissed them off. But there's some people who are just assholes. They just are. And if the business that you're going to do with them has a low accountability rate, meaning you don't spend a lot of time with them, you don't have to interact a lot, well, then maybe it's fine. You just know that if something goes wrong, they're going to be a prick about it and it's not going to be any fun. But it's probably fine. However, if you have to do business with somebody, even if the money, and I'm dealing with this right now, actually, on a couple of fronts, what they have to offer is so good. It's such a good deal. But the guy's such an asshole. And it's like, I want, and I've been burned on this. I've said yes because you take the money, you need the money right now, you need it. And let me tell you what happens. The person is exactly who they said they were. They're an asshole. They hold you accountable to everything while they're accountable to nothing. And you spend so much time trying to make it right by them that you miss out on a ton of, even if they're just smaller opportunities, that amount to the same amount of money as the asshole gave you.
Right.
Or worse yet, you waste all that time and you miss out on a great opportunity with a partner who you can grow with. And it's why? Because you needed the money today. And I think that's the real circle of this. We were talking about this before. How do you title this show? The real circle and the real answer in all this is be patient. Wait for opportunities that you can provide value, and they not only provide value back to you, but they appreciate you for what you did. And those are the relationships you will have for a lifetime of business. Doesn't matter if you're at this company or another. They'll always work with you because they know that most of the time it works. And even when it doesn't, you're accountable. The ones that will never work are the ones that start off with an asshole, or you sold them something that you couldn't deliver on, or you didn't understand their needs, or you didn't recognize that there was no deal to be had in the first place.
Right.
Be patient and just pick the wins that are right for you. And even though it's going to be harder in the early game because you don't have as much money and you're really scrambling, you will pay off in the long haul, because by the time you get 5 years down the road, you'll have 20 or 30 customers you can call on anytime you need them versus having to scramble at Christmas time.
Yeah, I love how simple that is, but yet it is tough to do. It is tough to keep yourself doing business with those that you like and trust, even though we all say that that's the only people we do business with. But yeah,
honestly, I'll tell you, I've done that. I've had a ton of people. I won't say a ton, but there's been at least, I can think of 5 there's at least 5 times that I've said yes to a deal with an asshole and I knew that I shouldn't have. And all 5 times I regretted it. And all 5 times the amount of money that they gave me, which at the time seemed like a fortune, ended up being way less than what I actually missed out on.
Yep. I've done that with customers before where I've gotten a great deal. So I thought, but I knew it was going to be a tough one. And then, it was almost like all the money in the world can't pay me for this, so.
Yeah, totally.
Well, this has been a great conversation, Scott. I definitely appreciate your perspective. And I really like how you're thinking about how people can utilize equity crowdfunding. And I think that's so exciting.
No, I agree. It's a great marketing opportunity and people should definitely, if nothing else, learn more about it.
Absolutely. If anybody is listening, want to learn more about it, connect with you, what's the best way for them to find you?
Yeah, you can follow Technori on all things social at Technori. You can follow me on most things social at Kitun, my last name, Kitun. And I highly recommend checking out Technori.com just because we've got the blog and you can invest in startups and links to the podcast. Anything that you want to know is right there, Technori.com.
Well, Scott, thanks again for being on the show. Super appreciate all your time.
Of course, you too. It's a great time.
Digital marketing agencies have a tough job. You have to stay on top of the latest marketing strategies for your clients and your agency. What if there was a way you could address both at the same time? Imagine your agency putting out content with greater quality and quantity. Envision bringing your clients a turnkey solution for one of B2B marketing's fastest growing media strategies, podcasting. You know all those clients asking for your help with their account-based marketing efforts? Picture being the first to bring them the idea of content-based networking, showing them the proven strategy for breaking into their most coveted accounts. Here's the concept. Sweetfish Media is looking to work with a limited number of innovative agencies interested in a new partnership model. We produce a podcast for your agency. You introduce the power of podcasting and Sweetfish services to your clients. Everybody wins. Learn more at sweetfishpartners.com.